We are here today at Bangkok Shambhala Meditation Center. This is Jimmy, the resident meditation instructor. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Sud.
Can you please explain a little bit about Shambhala for us?
Sure. So this lineage here is representative of the Shambhala Buddhist lineage. So it comes originally from Tibet, but it's also had two generations of practitioners now in the West. And so even though it's a Tibetan Buddhist lineage, the roots are really in I'd say the modern world, modern culture, the culture that we live in. So it's not based on the kind of culture of Tibet or any kind of ancient, any kind of an ancient thing that's like something exotic. It's based on something that's really relevant to our life and the modern world, and to Thailand, of course, and also to just the time and place of where we as a human society is at in the world these days.
And how is it actually different from Thai Buddhism?
Well, the Buddha taught in a lot of different ways at different times. And so, according to my teachers anyways, the understanding is that the Buddha taught basically three turnings of the wheel of Dharma, what we call three turnings of the wheel. So the Buddha taught different methods or different approaches for different people. And so Vajrayana Buddhism, which is what Tibetan Buddhism is, comes out of the interaction that happened between the Buddha and a king of India, King Dawasampo, King Indrabhuti. And basically what he approached the Buddha with a question. He said, I have this kingdom, that I'm the sovereign of, and I have my responsibilities, and I've heard, your teachings to other people about the monastic path and about renouncing the world, and I'm just wondering if you have anything that's something for me, being in this unique position, being a king, feeling that he was expressing to the Buddha that he felt responsible for his position of power, and that he was just wondering if there was any way that he could incorporate what the Buddha was teaching into the thing that he was already doing. That, in other words, something that wouldn't have to have him leave the situation that he was in order to start practicing to become a practitioner or follower of the teachings of what the Buddha was presenting. And so basically all of Vajrayana Buddhism came out of that, and specifically Shambhala came out of that, because Shambhala then was the practices and the teachings and the basically the society that evolved at that time in India, or I guess it's India, I'm not sure exactly the geography of the location, but it's what evolved basically out of that kingdom that he was the king of, when he started presenting these teachings to the people in his realm, in his kingdom. And what happened there basically was that people started that it changed. It changed a lot of people. A lot of people really got it, and it was a more secular approach to Buddhism than what was having been presented before. So the interesting thing is that the founder of Shambhala, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, came to the West, and what's said is that when he was leaving Tibet, he started having these visions. He started having this. It was like things were being downloaded to him. That this was information that was really important about. And he actually wrote a whole volume. He wrote a big book that eventually ended up getting lost. Actually, got lost in the river when he was leaving Tibet. They were crossing a river, and I guess he lost it. It got fell out of his bag or whatever. but the point is that he was having all these visions about, like the way to present these teachings, in the world that he was heading to, which he had no idea what he was heading for, of course, at that time. So it was kind of auspicious that it happened in that context.
Right.
But he had, basically these visions of like the way that about all the different kinds of methods and approaches and things that were relevant about teaching this kind of thing. And then when he got to the West, and he became very learned. Actually, he studied at Oxford University, and he was monastic, as a Rinpoche, as a reincarnate Lama, and he started teaching these teachings to the people that he met in Scotland. And what he found is that people weren't really getting it, that people were really fascinated by him as a Tibetan and as a special person, as a reincarnate Lama, and that they were getting kind of hooked in the trappings of the presentation of who he was as like a holy man, and that they were missing the point. And so what he eventually decided was that he needed to let go of the way that he was presenting himself as a holy person, in order for people to understand what the teachings were about. And so he basically took a deep dive into the culture. He renounced his monastic robes, and he was relating himself, to like ordinary people, because he was curious to know what made people tick, what their inclinations were, what their motivations were, what was driving their desires, what was driving their fascination, what was driving their interest in Buddhism. And so he really, coming from that position that he was in as a reincarnate Lama, and having been, placed in a monastery and trained from the age of like 2 years old or something like that, he took a pretty big leap in like letting go of the whole kind of way that he was presenting himself as an official something, because he thought it was more important that that he understood the people in the West, which is so much different from Tibet, and that the people really understood the thing that he was teaching, and not just the kind of not just the culture of Tibet, or not just as a fascination, but that they really got the essence of the teachings of what it was talking about. So he really presented a different approach, and this kind of went back and forth over time, that he presented traditional Buddhist teachings, and then he went to presenting a more secular approach, which he called the Shambhala Terma, or the Shambhala, the hidden, Terma is a word which means like hidden treasure. So the hidden treasure of what the teachings were, which were kind of like something that was being like revealed to him, over time. So he was presenting these teachings in secular approach in a way that he found to be in some ways more relevant and more applicable, and more in tune with the way that things were, especially in the Western world, because people were they were being brought up as, they're being raised as Catholics or Christians, or Jewish, or something like that. So they didn't have that background of understanding, what Buddhism was even about. So he really just reinvented the whole, way that the teachings were presented, so that people could really understand the true meaning of it.
That's fascinating. So how did you originally get involved with Shambhala then?
Well, I was born in Colorado, and interestingly enough, it was one of the places that Chogyam Trungpa um, made his home. He actually there was a few different places where he kind of established himself and established the teachings, established centers, earlier meditation communities, in the earlier days. But Colorado was one of the strongholds, and so he spent a lot of time in Boulder, and I never met him myself. He was a bit before my time, but yeah, he was teaching in Colorado, and there was a big center and a big community and a big following of his in Boulder, which is where I went to school. So I was taking classes at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I was interested in philosophy and psychology and religious studies and Eastern religions and kind of everything like that, And I was taking other classes on different kind of Eastern religions and stuff. And I took a class with one teacher who was teaching there, and something struck me about the way that he was presenting the material. That I really was fascinated by the fact that he was presenting things from a point of view of really having kind of an inside knowledge about what they were talking about, rather than just being a kind of theoretical kind of thing. And so the fact that he seemed to be have such an intimate knowledge of it really fascinated me, and also the way that he I guess presented it was just like it clicked with me. It was like, oh, this is something that makes sense to me more than anything else that I've, I liked, Taoism and Hinduism, and those things were interesting and stuff. But when I started hearing the teachings of this guy, of the founder of Shambhala, and what he was presenting, I thought, oh, this is something that's really like, this is something that really resonates with me, So I wanted to know more.
That's how you get started.
Yeah.
So what is it about this tradition specifically that you think is relevant to you?
Well, like I said, it's this time in the world, this place in the world. People are busy. People are, moving, even in Thailand, which is a Buddhist culture, people are, we're in a we're living in a materialistic world, like Madonna, material girl in a material world.
Right.
Especially in Bangkok, especially in Thailand. And it's not, of course, it's the whole world. So by the fact that the media, presents things in the way everybody's connected via the internet, it's a small world in some ways that we live in, the way that everything is so interconnected, with the information technology that we have. And so it's, very unusual. Let's say it's very unusual that somebody commits their time, really commits their life to being a monastic, for example.
Right.
Well, the interesting thing about these teachings is that it's something that's really applicable and relevant to practitioners who are working, having families, and it stems from the origin. So the Buddha's original teachings to King Dawa Sangpo, that's the Tibetan name for him, by the way, Dawa Sangpo, is all about how to be a person living in the world, engaged in your life, and also be a practitioner.
I see. And why is it so important to you that you've been volunteering your time to lead the classes and organize this program here in Bangkok for you've been here 16, 17 years? Why is that?
Well, it started... Well, I became a meditation instructor. I guess maybe I could back up a little bit. Yeah, so I started practicing in this tradition, after I found this teacher who was teaching at the University of Colorado, and kind of found my way to the center in Boulder and practicing with the community there, studying the teachings. Basically, I was hungry for knowledge, and I wanted to get my hands on everything I could everything I could read and study from Trungpa Rinpoche, from the founder of Shambhala. And so I kind of I took a really dedicated approach to learning, and I went through the path rather quickly. And I mean, compared to some people, sometimes people take quite a long time to go through the kind of the path programs and stuff like that.
Right.
A part of it was maybe fortunate circumstances. I was able to do a lot of retreats and do a lot of the programs, and so I really dove into it and immersed myself in it. And I found that the community there in Boulder especially was really something that was life-changing for me, and it was something that really sustained me. And then when I moved to Thailand, I thought, well, it's a big part of my life, I can't just kind of leave that behind, Wouldn't it be great if there was a Shambhala, center or Shambhala community here in Thailand?
Yes.
And nothing existed at that time, but there was a few other people that I knew that were meditation practitioners, and one other guy in particular who was part of the Shambhala community from Europe that was living here. And what ended up happening is that these friends were asking me, like, hey, we should get together and meditate, we should get together and practice together once a week or something. And so we had a group that started meeting in my living room originally.
Oh, originally?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so that was great for a few close friends, but not really to have outside people, come and join us. And so it eventually outgrew my living room, and we moved to a common area of a condo building, and at the condo building I was living in. And so then we could invite people to come in, from anywhere. So so it just kind of started like that, based on my inspiration to continue, and the fact that also I became a meditation instructor in the U.S. Before I left. So I went through this, the study program and stuff like that to be able to become a teacher, a meditation instructor. And so basically it was just natural then that it eventually we were having meditation group meetings that people needed instructions, and so and it's not just that it was it's not just that it was something that people were asking for, but it was also the yearning that I had that that it was really a transformative thing and really important part of my life. That I found these teachings that was really it really became the essential part of my life, basically. So then it was just only natural to continue, to present. And by the fact that nobody else was a meditation instructor, it was kind of like, it was me, it's I'm the only one who could do it, so I have to kind of step up. And it's interesting too, because like in Boulder, there's so many really great teachers there.
Yes.
Yes, like, I mean, so many senior students of Trungpa Rinpoche living there that had been practicing and also teaching for quite a long time.
Wow.
So for me there as a meditation instructor was kind of like, I can answer the question or I can give basic meditation instructions, but who am I? Why?
Right.
I'm not going to, these guys are really great teachers, Why should I do it? What do they need me for, But here it's just like, well, guess what? You got to step up to the plate because there's nobody else here. There's nobody else that can do it.
Yeah.
So basically out of necessity.
But that's very good, like for the beginning, like, I mean, started from your like common area in your like condo, and then you moved to like a bigger place in the building, and now you're here in like the center of Bangkok, like Sukhumvit 23.
Yeah.
Right?
It took a long time to get here, much longer than I thought, in terms of us having our own space to rent.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it would happen, like a few years after we started, because actually we had quite a few people coming in the beginning. There was quite a few people that were interested, and so we would have like a weekend program sometimes and have like 20 people. You know, it was no big deal. So I thought, oh yeah, we're gonna have we're gonna have a meditation center. It's gonna be like have a great view out of one of these high-rise buildings, windows or something like that. Long time. Things move much slower here in Thailand in terms of forming the connections and sustaining, and having. I guess people were coming out of fascination, and then it was kind of like, oh, they're on to the next thing. That they're fascinated with something else.
I see.
Yeah.
So now you have like weekly like classes and like on some weekend as well, right? Some Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been in this location here for, I want to say 4 years now, something like that. With COVID, it was kind of like a time warp, I don't remember exactly. The time passed by at a different rate or something during that time period. But yeah, we've been here in this location. We had the first time we rented our own space, we had a place in the building where there's a yoga studio down the road. But we've been here now in this location for 3 years or something, 4 years. And so we're able to have classes whenever we want to, basically. So right now I'm the only teacher that's here, so it's a bit limited in terms of that I'm the only one presenting. But like what was happening before, we were having visiting teachers come through, like every once in a while. And so then we'd have programs from a visiting teacher or somebody else, presenting something. We've had a few pretty big name lamas or rinpoches come through. And so we've been able to organize some pretty big events with stuff like that. But yeah, right now we've got just a few classes a week, and sometimes we'll do a weekend program and retreats or something like that.
But I think because of the COVID as well, that's why like things like get so slow, like here now, right?
Yeah. Well, the main thing is we survived. I mean, here we were able to maintain the space. We didn't lose the space.
Right.
We were able to keep it.
Yeah, that's nice enough. I mean.
Yeah. It's a big accomplishment because a lot of places around here went out of business.
Yeah, I can see
COVID.
that.
A lot of restaurants shut down. A lot of businesses that were thriving just shut down. They couldn't sustain. But I use the space for my office as well. So I don't do this. I'm just teaching this as a volunteer. It's my passion. I love doing it. I love helping people. But I also have to make money, so I've got my job. To do my export business, and so I can do this, and then turn around and lead a meditation class, and basically walk into the other room here, and I've got this beautiful place here to host a group of people and lead classes.
All right, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.